everyone, this is Mel from Cardstock Concoctions coming to you guys today with another project. And I decided that I did a lot of cards lately and I have done a lot of scrapbooks lately that I've been making gradually over the time. And I decided, you know what, we need a good 3D item. So this is actually what I came up with. And it's a cute little box. It's about 3 inches wide by about 2 1/4 inches tall by about 1.5 inches deep. And the really cool thing about this is that it has no adhesive and no cutting. So it's just scoring and that's it. What actually holds it together is your ribbon. So let's go ahead and get started and we'll go through the supplies as we go. So what you guys are going to need is a 6x6 piece of designer series paper or cardstock. I'm using Serene scenery today. You guys have seen me use a lot of this stuff before. I love this paper stack. You're probably going to see a lot of stuff from me in the future with it. All right, grab your stamping board, your stamping score. The first 2 score lines we're going to do are actually the ones that make your sides. So if you want your image to be going horizontally, at this point in time, you need to make sure your paper is going horizontally. So the image that you want to go horizontal needs to be horizontal. If you want your image to be going vertical, it needs to be going vertical. If that doesn't make sense, please leave a comment below. I will hopefully be able to explain it better later on. For me, I picked a pattern that didn't matter this time. So I'm just going to go ahead and score. So your first score line, it's a grand total of 4, is at 1.5 inches. And your next score line is at 4.5 inches. Then you are going to rotate. Oh, by the way, before I forget, you guys don't need to write down any dimensions, score lines, anything like that. Go ahead and click in the description bar below. It'll take you to my site to the free tutorial for this project. You can also purchase supplies there. Okay, so that's done, out of the way, right? All right, so our first score line and our second score line, rotate at 90 degrees. Then you want to score 2 1/4 and 3 3/4. Make sure it's 3 3/4, 3 1/2 will not do it. Okay, we're done with our scoreboard. I know. Such a big deal, right? So at this stage of the game, you're going to want to use a bone folder, my well-loved, well-used bone folder, and burnish your score lines gently, especially if you're using designer series paper. It is paper, guys. It's not cardstock, it's paper. It's high quality paper and thick paper for being paper, but it is paper. So be gentle with it, but still definitely burnish it. Okay, so you guys now see this. You have the fat pieces at the top and bottom and the skinnier ones on the side, right? Yeah, you guys can't see it that side. It's the side better. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to have this, I'm going to call it the fat triangle next to a thin triangle. You have the score line next to a thin triangle. It's between your fat triangle and your fat triangle and thin triangle. Let's try that again. Fat triangle, thin triangle, score line in between. And then next to that thin triangle, you have one at the bottom here as well. That makes the base. You're going to want to take that and fold it up to that score line in between your fat and your thin triangle. Meet those two, and inside you're going to have, I don't know if you guys can see this, I'm hoping, with getting my fat finger out of the way here. You're going to make a triangle with that. I start it with my finger, and I end it with my bone folder there. Make a nice, good crease. Go ahead and do that all the way around. So take those 2 score lines, meet up, fold in here, get my fat fingers out of the way, and there we go. Just do that all the way around. If you guys like to do this part with your fingers, go for it. I personally don't get a good burnish with my fingers, so that's why I use my bone folder. Ooh, not quite good. All right, that one I don't want to do with my fingers for. Okay, there we go. Oh, one more. Don't miss one. Okay, last one. There we go. I'm going to burnish this one here. Okay, all your scoring is done. So you're going to take this, and in order to get this side view, I just took my triangles that I pushed in and just push them out now. And fold one over the other. And you're going to want to line up your edges. And you may even want to get your fingers in there and, you know, work the paper until it works for you. So there we go. And there we go. Okay. So now at this stage of the game, we're pulling in our ending here. Pulling in the one thing that actually holds this all together. So decide which side you guys want as your front, if you want it this side or if you want it this side. I think I want this side here. Line up your pieces. Grab your 1/8 inch circle punch. I also call this a hole punch. Sorry guys, in case it's wrong. Go ahead and punch a hole. Do the same thing on the other side. It's a little far down in there. Punch a hole. Okay. Now you're going to want to grab your stitched satin ribbon. This here is actually not stitched satin ribbon. Right before I filmed this, I've lost my stitched satin ribbon. I don't know where I put it. So I'm going to use some Stampin' Up! Retired ribbon, unfortunately. But it works. So grab your Whisper White stitched satin ribbon. This is a very, very small hole. So if you need to, you may need to make this a little bit of a deeper cut. Okay. Hold that together. Thread it through. You want to tie a small knot and tie it as close to the end as you possibly can. This is about 10 inches of ribbon. Maybe just over 10 inches of ribbon. Gives you a nice handle for your bag. Now you don't want to use something too much bigger than your stitched satin ribbon. There we go. It's going to, you're going to need a bigger hole punch, and the bigger holes kind of become a little unseemly here. You're not going to want to use something too much smaller than a stitched satin ribbon either, about the same size, about 3/8 of an inch, because then it won't stay in your holes. The knot's too small. So I had a client go, well, I'm going to use my baker's twine. And I'm like, okay, you're going to need a smaller hole. You're going to need to use a 1/16 inch punch and not a 1/8 inch. So we're going to do the same thing to this. Whoops. There we go. I'm apparently having big problems tying knots today. There we go. All right. And that there is your box made, or your bag. So now we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to stamp some stuff. We're going to get down to the stamping part. So for this, I'm actually going to use the Acorny Thank You stamp set, and I'm going to use the high. And I'm just going to use the high. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to grab my old olive marker and some scrap Whisper White. I'm just going to ink this up. And it is photopolymer, so you can see real well. Got a little bit of ink over there. What it is that you're inking. And it works really, really well for me. All right. So now that I'm all inked up here. Now, because it is photopolymer, if you are not working on your entire section of grid paper like I am, I would go ahead and grab your stamping piercing mat. It's a foam mat. Stick underneath it. Straight down. Hold it for a few seconds. Straight up. Okay. You know, I don't like that. You got a little bobbled there. Bye. All right. So I'm actually going to do this one on the top of it. And we're going to go straight down. That one looks better. If you find something that you really don't like, you're using your markers. Got something on the tip of my marker here. Just go ahead and gently, lightly fill it in there. Like I just did. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a few seconds. We're going to grab our 2-inch circle punch and a scrap of Whisper White here. We are going to grab our 1 3/8 inch circle punch. We're going to pop out the high so it fits in there nice and neat. We're done with our Whisper White. We're going to grab a scrap of old olive and our 1 3/4 inch circle punch. Pop that out as well. Alright, so you guys are like, okay, but looks like you guys have some inking around the edges and there's no stamp sets or there's no stamp pads. That is correct. I don't have any stamp pads out. But you do have your marker out. So just go ahead and run it around the edge. It gives you guys just a smidgen of color without having to pull out something else. So you don't need you don't need a sponge, you don't need the stamp pad. Now, if you have your stamp pad out because you're gonna mask your high and do it that way, that also works. And then I would just grab your sponge and sponge it. But you're just running it around the edge. Easy peasy. Just like that. And you're done. So now, last but not least, let's grab ourselves some dimensionals. And I'm going to dimensionalize this. So we're going to stick one on the back of there, flip over our high, one on the back of our high. Oops. One second. Flip over our circle. And I put 3 on the back of my circle just to hold it in place. I don't know why I chose 3. I did. Let's go ahead and get rid of all the backs. Pull back in our bag. Stick it smack dab in the middle there. It does fit. We're going to grab our old olive, stick our old olive in the center on top. And I liked this combo of circle layers because it gave me a nice big border around everything. So it gave me a very deep border. You could also use your circle framelits to do this as well. All right, and last but not least, I added a little bit of bling in this one. So I went ahead and I cut off one of our smallest rhinestones here. And I just went ahead and I added it right there on the top of the high. All right, guys, that is my project. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked it, please like it. If you guys enjoyed this project, please subscribe to see more from me. If you have any questions or comments, there's always the comment bar below. Go ahead and email me. I would love to hear from you. If you guys need anything, let me know. This is Mel from Cardstock Concoctions saying see you later next time.